So this is going to be our fifth class in the course that we have been conducting from last 1 month, and today what we will be pondering upon or cogitating upon is a very important theme, and I was trying to bring together all those discussions that we have been having for last four classes, and I was trying to find a suitable title for what we are going to do with bringing this all the things together. And I thought that we can talk about what is called the Buddhist political thought, isn't it? So we, as we have seen in the course of our classes, that Buddhism is not just about so-called spiritual development, but it's also about the social and political view of the world. And this is where I think the genius of Babasaheb Ambedkar lies, because in the 1950s or in the 40s, when the Buddhist world was getting into the grip of Marxism or communism, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar was making a plea to them to examine Buddhism, because according to Babasaheb Ambedkar, it was very possible to develop the political and social theories out of the vast teachings of the Buddha. And I think this point is very important even today, to think about the Buddhist political thought or Buddhist social thought, as the Buddhist countries and their thinkers should have done long way back, when their countries were coming into grip of the communism or Marxism. So you see, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar has written a booklet which was titled as Buddha or Marx. And he has also given the speech on Buddha and Marx in the WFB conference, World Fellowship of Buddhist Conference. And the content of both the speech and the paper is same. What Babasaheb Ambedkar is trying to get into in that paper or in that booklet or in that speech is that the questions raised by Marxism can be easily answered by Buddhism. And if we look at the conclusion of that paper, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar says that the ways and means of the Buddha are more tenable and viable than the ways and means suggested by Karl Marx or Marxism. So what is important in this context today is to look at the few elements of the Buddhist political thoughts, as Babasaheb Ambedkar has tried to cover them. And is there a social philosophy or social thought in Buddhism? Did Buddha talk about society? Did Buddha talk about politics? The answer is in affirmative. And we have this whole, I would say, a very penetrating insights have been discovered by Babasaheb Ambedkar when he did extensive study of Buddhism from the social and political point of view. So I think this is very important for us to understand, because ultimately, when we are looking at Buddhism, Buddha talks about a society or a new social order. And if we look at the Buddhist Sangha, the mandate of the Buddhist Sangha is to really exemplify what the Buddha taught. So it's like we know that Babasaheb Ambedkar was a trained researcher, and the way he has researched into Buddhist studies and linked it up with the modern sort of thought, so it is not just trying to look at the past from the present, but Babasaheb Ambedkar has recovered the entire political thought from the teachings of the Buddha, entire social thoughts from the teachings of the Buddha, and he has contrasted that with the dominant political thought of the time. the Marxian thought, the thoughts of Karl Marx. So you see why this question is relevant, because unless we understand Buddhism as something which has something to offer to the politics, to the society, and to the economy, and so on and so forth. So these views, though these disciplines are modern, like economics and politics, we call them modern disciplines. But if you look at the Western political thought, they will begin with the thoughts of Socrates, Plato, and the democracies in Athens, and so on and so forth. So you see, there is an entire construction of this beautiful thought process by Babasaheb Ambedkar. So what I'm going to do is to really explore some of the themes that have been brought out by Babasaheb Ambedkar in a way to construct in a manner uh, some of the pointers to what can be called the Buddhist political thought. So you see, when Babasaheb Ambedkar has written another booklet, which was titled as Buddha and the Future of His Religion, which is a very profound sort of a paper in itself. And I recommend all of you, if you get access to that, please read this very foundational paper that Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar has written. And there, when he is talking about why he chose Buddhism, he has basically raised the four important criteria as to why, why he has chosen Buddhism. And there we find the roots of the political thought uh, that we can call, the Buddhist political thought, as examined by Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar. And why Babasaheb Ambedkar? Because, in the last classes you have seen that Babasaheb Ambedkar has studied Buddhism deeply. He launched the biggest revival of Buddhist movement in the world, in the religious history. That must be the biggest conversion movement. And he was the founder of the constitution of our country. So you see, that's why I'm looking at the Buddhist political theory, thought, as Babasaheb Ambedkar would have looked into. So you see, he says that there are four criteria as to why he has chosen Buddhism. So I'm going to read them. He says that society must have either the sanction of law. So as we have seen in the previous class, that society must have the sanction of law or the sanction of morality to hold it together, isn't it? So dictatorship cannot hold the society together, and the absence of government, which is called anarchy, cannot hold the government together, cannot hold the society together. And as we have seen in the profound thought process of Babasaheb Ambedkar, where he has said that the society needs the Dhamma, the morality, and morality is nothing but the heart of the Buddha's teachings. So you see, the first criteria is that society must have either the sanction of law or the sanction of morality to hold it together. Without either, society is sure to go to pieces. In all societies, law plays a very small part. It is intended to keep the minority within the range of social discipline. The majority is left and has to be left to sustain its social life by the postulates and sanction of morality. Religion, in the sense of morality, must therefore remain the governing principle in every social society. Very profound and very clear statement as to why the society needs morality and why the morality should be the ultimate base or foundation of religion. So you see, if you begin to understand this thought process of Babasaheb Ambedkar, the first criteria is this, that the society must have either the sanction of law or the sanction of morality to hold it together. Without either, society is sure to go to pieces. And then Babasaheb Ambedkar has gone on, explaining it, and we have seen that in the previous class as to how the Dhamma is the instrument of government. So the second criteria, that religion, as defined in the first proposition, must be in accord with science. This very, very fundamental and important thought that Babasaheb Ambedkar has put here, that any religion in the first proposition must be in accord with science. Religion is bound to lose its respect and therefore become the subject of ridicule, and thereby not merely loses its force as a governing principle of life, but might in course of time disintegrate and lapse if it is not in accord with science. In other words, religion, if it is to function, must be in accord with reason, which is merely another name for science, isn't it? So the science is very important, isn't it? And religion must accord with science. If it deviates from the rationality, or it deviates from science, it will be reduced to some ridiculous doctrine or some ridiculous teachings that we have seen what has happened in the history of Europe. So the religion must be in accord with science. Very important. So the first principle, that the world needs morality, the religion or the governing principle has to be in accord with science. That religion as a code of social morality must also stand together another test. So the third test that Babasaheb Ambedkar has given for any religion to pass. It is not enough for religion to consist of a moral code, but its moral code must recognize the fundamental tenets of liberty, equality, and fraternity. And we have seen these fundamental tenets, how they are shaping up in the scheme of Buddhism. And we have seen this famous statement by Babasaheb Ambedkar that, he has taken these values of liberty, equality, fraternity, not from the French Revolution, but from his teacher, the Buddha. So you see, the religion as a code of social morality must also stand together another test. It is not enough for religion to consist of a moral code, but its moral code must recognize the fundamental tenets of liberty, equality, and fraternity. Unless a religion recognizes these three fundamental principles of social life, religion will be doomed. and the point number 4, or we can call it the test number 4, the religion must not sanctify or ennoble poverty, isn't it? Because we have seen that the religions tend to ennoble poverty. They tend to glorify poverty. Even the Buddhism is accused of, ennobling the poverty. So, what Babasaheb Ambedkar says is this, that religion must not sanctify or ennoble poverty. Renunciation of riches by those who have it may be blessed state, but poverty can never be. To declare poverty to be a blessed state is to pervert religion, to perpetuate vice and crime, to consent to make earth a living hell. So, why is this discussion important? Why we are talking about these 4 points or the tests in terms of, when we are trying to, talk about the Buddhist political thought. Because when we look at the modern history, we begin with people having a lot of different political thoughts. Even the French Revolution has this slogan of liberty, equality, and fraternity, isn't it? The French Revolution and the French Constitution was based on liberty, equality, and fraternity. So for Babasaheb Ambedkar, the liberty, equality, and fraternity are not the values of either East or West. They are the universal values, and they are the basis of any society to make a progress. Without these 3 values, the society cannot progress. And as we have seen that equality, liberty, and fraternity is, together they constitute justice, and they constitute social justice, economic justice, and political justice, isn't it? So you see how liberty, equality, and fraternity, when they are bundled together into one single value of justice, and how that justice has these 3 features of social justice, political justice, and economic justice. So you see, this is to understand the 3 kinds of democracies that we will be talking today. The one of the kinds of democracy that we will be talking today is a political democracy. And the political democracy, as we have seen, is about, constitutional morality, respect for the authority, respect for the constitutional law of the country, respect for the constitutional values like liberty, equality, and fraternity, without which the political democracy cannot come into existence. The second criteria, as we have seen, which is essential for the political democracy to come, alive, is the right to vote, isn't it? In other words, it is called the universal adult franchise. And the third thing that's important is the citizens' right to represent, to become a representative of their communities, isn't it? To represent their constituencies. That's the fundamental right. And if you combine these three aspects together, we get what is called the political democracy. When we are talking about economic democracy, we can talk a lot about it. But to summarize in a few words, it's the distribution of wealth among the people, isn't it? And then we know about social democracy, where there is an equality, where there is an equal opportunity for all, where there is an equal representation for all, where people can have a freedom to develop their potential fully, isn't it, without any hindrance. So for example, if you look at the caste-based societies, it restricts the individual's inherent potential to develop fully. It already puts the limits, by social conventions or by traditions on the limits of the development of an individual. Now, coming back to this word social democracy, because this word social democracy is very important for us to understand, because that is what the countries have been striving for, isn't it? If you look at the America after the Great Recession, it was trying to become the social democracy, and quite successfully. Same is the case with United Kingdom, UK. Same with Germany. At some point of time, they were socially democratic countries, isn't it? And then suddenly we have seen the things have started shifting in different directions. India, for example, was has a vision of social democracy. And this word social democracy is very important, and it's not just a kind of a fanciful thinking or a romantic thinking. There are two countries in the world which have developed in terms of these what is called as the social democracies: Norway and Sweden. If we study these two countries, we have this best health care in these countries, isn't it? We have the best education accessible to all the people. These countries have taken care of their minorities. These countries have taken care of the diversities, and there is what is called the unemployment insurance. So you see, if you look at this concept of social democracy, we begin to see that this is very, very important to understand, that these ideals that have been talked about in terms of equality of opportunity for all, equality in the society, not much gap between the rich and poor. In other words, the capital and the labor is in the negotiation. The it's not that the labor is damned to the life of poverty. So you see, is my voice clear, audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, it's audible.
So see, it's not just in the realm of some fanciful or romantic thinking. It's not just kind of a what is called the romanticism that we are talking about in terms of the social democracies. The two countries, Norway and Sweden, demonstrated that there is a possibility, and that possibility of a social democracy we have seen also in case of America in 30s, and then the following decades, when having this what is called the relatively better lives than what they have today. So you see, social democracy is not a fanciful thinking. It has been made reality in the countries like Norway and Sweden to the great extent. So what we are talking about is not something that is in the realm of idealism. That's not something in the realm of romanticism. It's not a romantic idea. It's a practical idea. That's how you create a new society. That's how you create a new social order. That is what is crucial for us to understand. So what I'm going to do with this background, I'm going to look at some of the fascinating ideas of Babasaheb Ambedkar, because this background was important to build what we can say the Buddhist political thought, isn't it? So the first thing first is that the Buddha has definite political thoughts which can be recovered, constructed, developed based on the readings of the Buddhist text. That is what Babasaheb Ambedkar has done. So basically, what is happening is, you know, when we are talking about Buddhism, and when we are talking about Babasaheb Ambedkar's view of Buddhism, it's about, you know, uh, it's about growth, it's about progress, it's about, if we have to use the word, creating capital, creating resources. So in other words, the view of Buddhism is not something that is linked with poverty, that links with hunger, that linked with the sustainable life, and not the progress in the life. So what Babasaheb Ambedkar has argued, and quite forcefully, that the Buddhism is just not about what is called the progress of mind, but also the material progress. So Buddha is for the material progress, because in some of the suttas we have seen that the Buddha has said that the poverty is a dukkha, the poverty is suffering, and with a more nuanced views of Babasaheb Ambedkar regarding the cultivation of resources, or developing resources, or mobilizing resources, can be found very early on in his thinking. He says in 1918 essay, where he has reviewed the book written by Bertrand Russell, where Babasaheb Ambedkar has said, and I am going to read this passage: "This time-honored complaint of the moralists against love of money is only a part of their general complaint against the goods of the world, and finds its justification in the economic circumstances which gave rise to this particular belief. At a time when the whole world was living in pen economy, as did the ancient world, and when the productivity of human labor was extremely low, and when no effort could augment its return, in short, when the whole world was living in poverty, it is but natural that moralists should have preached the gospel of poverty and renunciation of worldly pleasures, only because they were not to be had." Very clear passage, very early on in the career of Babasaheb Ambedkar, that he's saying that we don't have to live in poverty. No country has to live in poverty, because they can mobilize the resources to the extent that they can create a capital. The problem is not about property as such. So Babasaheb Ambedkar is not condemning the property. Babasaheb is not condemning the creation of capital. What he is condemning is very clear. He says, the trouble, therefore, one might say, is not with property, is not with capital, is not with money. So there has to be a growth in the society. There has to be a progress in the society. What he says, the trouble, therefore, one might say, is not with property, but with the unequal distribution of it. And that's why Babasaheb Ambedkar has said very categorically, when he chose Buddhism, is that the Buddha doesn't ennoble the poverty. The Buddha doesn't, romanticize poverty. Very important point. And we have to bear this point in our mind, that similar was the view of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, that Babasaheb Ambedkar was for the development. He was looking at the futuristic development of the society. While, by the way of comparison, if we look at the thoughts of Gandhi, or some of even some of the people, they talk about the golden past. They talk about the golden age, where the humanity too should go back to, isn't it? And Babasaheb Ambedkar never talks about the golden age, because the golden age wasn't there in the past, and we have to create the golden age in the future. We have to make progress in the future. And therefore, the second thing that we have seen as to why Babasaheb Ambedkar has gone over, chose Buddhism, because Buddhism was in accordance with rationality and science. And the science, as we have seen, has led to the unprecedented, growth in everything. In everything, you see the progress in agriculture, you see the progress in technology, you see the progress in which our lives are now comfortable. So you see, we this, when we are constructing the Buddhist political thought, you know not only ennobling or romanticizing the poverty, it's also important to create the resources. And to create the resources, the most important thing to for the progress, or so-called material progress of the world, is the science. And we have seen that Babasaheb Ambedkar doesn't just talk about the progress of the mind. He's talking about the social, political, and economic progress. And he says that that is what the Buddha taught. And there lies the political thought of the Buddha, what we can call the Buddhist political thought. And I find this idea very exciting. You see, this idea recovers, what is lost in the Buddhist history, and brings it back to where it should be in the modern societies, in the modern thought, in terms of, the Buddhism becoming the transforming force in the world. So you see, the science is not discounted. And if you look at the very life of Babasaheb Ambedkar, the way he has planned the big dams, the multi-purpose projects like Damodar Valley, or Hirakund Dam, and so many things, national grid, the power grid, isn't it? So the Babasaheb Ambedkar's contribution to the electrification of India, to the whole system of hydroelectric power, and the construction of dams for the multi-purpose projects, isn't it? You see, this is very important, because without this progress, we cannot have what is called the capital, the property, the money. The problem is not with the money. The problem is with the unequal distribution of money, isn't it? And if you look at Buddhism, the Buddha has asked or encouraged the so-called householder to earn money by legitimate means, to earn money, as much money as they can, by the judicious and non-corrupt practices. And when they earn the money like that, they get such a happiness when they share that money with other people. So earning money, becoming rich, progress, development, if you look at the Buddhist political thought, it should not have any objection, because the Buddha has already had talked about these particular values. The second thing that we can look at it is, as I was talking about, is that the world was in the sway of Marxism or socialism. And we have seen that the thought of socialism has influenced not only the European countries, but also the countries in the East, isn't it? So when Babasaheb Ambedkar is comparing Buddha or Marx, Babasaheb Ambedkar is actually developing the Buddhist political thought. And it's very important the way Babasaheb Ambedkar has developed the Buddhist political thought. He said that the means advocated by the Buddha are sustainable for a long time. The means advocated by Marx, that is the dictatorship of the proletariat, isn't it? It cannot sustain the government for a long time, because for the society to sustain, you cannot sustain it with power. You cannot sustain it with the dictatorship of any kind. Maybe for a short term, but for a longer term, the society cannot be governed by the dictatorship. And this was what the fundamental the disagreement Babasaheb Ambedkar had with Marxism. So he talked about the Marx talked about the dictatorship of proletariat. I am trying to simplify a lot of things. I encourage you to go back and read this very beautiful book written by Babasaheb Ambedkar, Buddha or Marx. So going back to this particular aspect of equality, you cannot have any society sustaining for a long time without equality, isn't it? and the kind of equality that Babasaheb Ambedkar has talked about, in terms of equality of opportunity in all areas for all the human beings, is a very profound political thought. And there comes a very important thought of Babasaheb Ambedkar, which he developed in response to Marx, because the Marxian interpretation of the history was materialistic, the struggle between the classes. But Babasaheb Ambedkar said that it's not enough. We have to bring the religion also. Or in case of India, it's the religion, it's the Brahmanism that has been causing, that has been the source of the conflict, isn't it? The source of the conflict is not just material. It's also ideological. It's also what is called the religion, isn't it? So you see, this is so profound a thought that Babasaheb Ambedkar has seen, and therefore, if you look at the Buddhist Dhamma, Babasaheb Ambedkar talks about social conflict or conflicts in the society, conflicts in the homes, conflict between the human beings is a source of the suffering, isn't it? So suffering is not just because of our personal misconduct, but there is a suffering because of the conflicts in the world. And Babasaheb Ambedkar has tried to look at how to create a conflict-free society, isn't it? So whenever if there is a society which is based on the caste system, that society can never be peaceful. That society can never become a social democracy. And if that society can never become a social democracy, that society can never become an economic democracy. And when we do not have social and economic democracy, that society cannot become a political democracy. Now, if you keep this framework in your mind and look at what's happening in India today in terms of equality, in terms of fraternity, in terms of liberty, we get a completely opposite picture of that. And we can realize that how much work remains to be done, to realize these values that are enshrined in our constitution. So you see, Babasaheb Ambedkar's thinking about this conflict in the society, particularly in Indian society, we can see that there is a very interesting sort of a thing. Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar has said that liberty, equality, and fraternity is very important criteria to decide whether the society is a just society or an unjust society, isn't it? So this political thought is very important for us to begin to understand what is the view of Babasaheb Ambedkar in terms of developing the political thought, the Buddhist political thought. So what I thought, I just wanted to give you some ideas or pointers to how we can construct the Buddhist political thought. And there is so much by the way of research and interpretation of Babasaheb Ambedkar that we can at least begin to see that this particular political thought is coming from Buddhism, and that is what is needed today. That is what is needed in the traditional Buddhist countries to understand the essence of the Buddha's political thinking, so that those countries set themselves on the path of the social democracy, the welfare of all. That's one. And for the countries in the West, they can make they can get a lot of clarity as to the means of Buddhism in order to develop a new social order. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about a new social order, because why we need to bring this all social democracy, political democracy, or even the economic democracy, because we want a new society, isn't it? We want a new society, and that new society means more equal society. The new society is more inclusive society. The new society is more prosperous society. The new society or the new social order is not an exploitative social order. So actually, when we are talking about democracy, the ultimate aim is to create the new social order, isn't it? And what happens to the problems that we face today in terms of the environment? What Babasaheb Ambedkar do to to fight the climate change? You know, how would Babasaheb Ambedkar respond to the new technological innovations that have been coming, for example, social media, isn't it? So I think there is enough in Babasaheb Ambedkar's thought to find the Buddhist responses to deal with poverty, to deal with inequality, to deal with the environmental crisis, and to deal with what we can say the new sort of the technological innovations that have been coming into play, like for example social media, isn't it? Why it's possible to do it? Why it's possible to do it? Because the thought process of Buddhism is dynamic. The Buddha's thought process is not conservative. Buddha is not talking about past. Buddha is not asking us to dwell in the past. He's asking us to choose whatever is the best from the past and look into present, and act in a way that will build a future. That is a simple, the way, the Buddhist method of change, any change, isn't it? And why we can respond to this unseen problem that even maybe that were not existing at the time of the Buddha and at the time of Babasaheb Ambedkar, because of the framework of the open-mindedness, the framework of an open society that they created, the importance of thought, the importance of intelligence, the importance of education, the importance of being free, isn't it, from all that can bind our minds to some narrow parochial thinking. So I'm just throwing some thoughts here and there because it's a vast topic and we will need to think very deeply about it in order to develop a coherent Buddhist political thought. And Babasaheb Ambedkar has already demonstrated that it's possible to construct the Buddhist political thought. And I'm sure that's in the few the scholars in the future, some of you may take that responsibility onto yourself, or onto yourself, to develop the Buddhist political thought. Why only Buddhist political thought? The Buddhist economic thought, the Buddhist social thought, and all sort of things that can be derived from these very, very important teachings of the Buddha. And as Babasaheb Ambedkar says, why he prefers Buddhism is because of Buddhism offers the inherent flexibility, isn't it? There is nothing fixed. With understanding the law of cause and effect, everything can be transformed. Everything can be transformed in a better way. Everything can be transformed in a way that will be of benefit to all human beings, isn't it? So by the way of offering you some kind of a thoughts or ideas on Buddhist political thought, I have just thrown some ideas here and there, and try to build them into a sort of a coherent way of understanding the Buddhist political thought. We have this task before us to really start producing this new knowledge, by going deep into the writings and speeches of Babasaheb Ambedkar, and bring it on the surface and share it with others, so that you share ourselves to the new social order, which is what Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar or the Buddha aimed at. How the society can ever evolve from the higher on the higher and higher planes of existence, isn't it? The humanity cannot get stuck in the same plane of existence forever. The humanity has to make progress. The humanity has to become free. The humanity has to become equal. The humanity has to become just. And this is very important message, that it's possible through the thoughts of the Buddha, through this mind that the Buddha has asked us to cultivate. So with this, I will just stop and open up the class. I know this is a heavy class with heavy ideas, but even if we can begin to grapple with some of these ideas, or play with some of these ideas, I think we can derive a lot of meat, a lot of substance out of it, lot of thinking out of it. And with this, I stop here and I open up the class for any discussion or any comment that you might be having. Yes, Dara.
Jai Bhim, sir. Sir, in if we see modern political international policy and soft power, uh, we can take inspiration from Ashoka's Dhammagosh foreign policy, the social political administration
Yes.
rather than military administration,
Yes.
and other when Marx said religion is the opium of the masses,
Yeah.
but Babasaheb said society needs religion and morality. Especially depressed classes need religion because they need hope. Uh, so how religion helping depressed classes?
Yes. Very important question, Dara. You see, the Marx called religion the what is called the opium of the masses. But what is the opium that time? What is the concept of opium that time? You know what? Why the opium is administered even today to reduce the pain, isn't it? To make people feel numb. So at some point of time, the religions, they numbed the minds of the people. They put them to sleep. That's true. But look at Buddhism. Buddhism says that, know the dukkha, know the suffering, know the exploitation, know the exploitative social structures, know the exploitative social ideas, know the exploitative political ideas, know, in other words, the dukkha, isn't it? So if you look at the framework of Four Noble Truths, the first noble truth, dukkha, begin with knowing the dukkha, isn't it? So as a Buddhist, as a warrior, we have to face the world. We have to face the dukkha. We cannot run away like, in the heavens or in the paradises, isn't it? That's not what the Buddha taught. The other religions have taught that, to escape from the reality of the day-to-day suffering. In lieu of that, they have talked about the life after death or life before you are born, isn't it? But what about this middle passage where, we are living, we are suffering, we are undergoing a lot of problems, isn't it? So the first thing that the Buddha taught is not to numb your mind, not to put your mind to sleep, but to make your mind alert, to make your mind, active. Face the fear, face the dukkha, isn't it? Be courageous. Because when we face the dukkha, we know what it is, how it is. And then we begin to find out how it arises, how it can be, annihilated, how it can be destroyed. What is the path to destroy this suffering, isn't it? Because dukkha is not some kind of a ordained reality, it arises because of the causes and conditions, as the Buddha says. And when you remove the causes and conditions, the dukkha can be removed. For example, the suffering because of the caste system. If you remove the caste system, there will not be suffering based on the caste system, maybe suffering based on something else. Do you understand, Dara, what I'm saying?
Yes, yes, sir.
So we have to understand religion in these two ways. Either we are confronting the realities of the world, or is our religion teaching us to escape the realities of the world? What do you prefer, Dara? To escape from the world, like, go somewhere else where, you will not face the world? Is it possible? Is there any place in the world where you go and you don't face the world?
No.
So the Buddha
Sir,
is a religion of courage. It is, we have to face the problems, we have to face the dukkha, we have to face what is this exploitation is all about. We cannot run away from it.
yes, sir.
And Babasaheb Ambedkar says that indifferentism is the worst kind of disease. If
Yes,
our religion, even Buddhism, is teaching us to be indifferent, then we have to
yes,
understand that is not the Buddha's teachings.
yes,
Does that answer your questions, Dara?
yes, yes, sir. Thank you.
Welcome. Anybody? Anyone? If not, I know that this has been not an easy topic to deal with, but I hope that if you can begin to grapple with some of it, as I said, ideas, and just turn over them in your minds, think about them, read more about it. I can assure you that it will yield so much of knowledge, and so much of means to create a new social order. The new social order that talks about, that gives people liberty, that gives people fraternity, that doesn't restrict them to develop their potential fully in all direction possible. So if not, if there is no question or any comments from any of you, then should we end our class here? And in the next week, we will have Dr. Jadumani speaking on very important aspect of Buddhism and Constitution. So, be there, and I encourage you to go back to the lectures again and again, because this is not an easy subject matter for us to understand. But even if this course can encourage you to read further and think further, I think our work is done. So, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.